Hello, Counsel of Men heads, and thank you to our previous guest, Rohan, for coming up with that. And welcome to today's episode. For many men, struggling with mental health doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like silence. It looks like working longer hours, withdrawing from friends, snapping at the people we love, or convincing ourselves we just need to get on with it. But the truth is, a lot of men are carrying far more than they let on, and too many are carrying it alone. In this episode of the Counsel of Men, we're joined by Dan Shrigley, a men's coach and the co-founder of the Shoulder to Shoulder community, a space built around something many men are quietly missing: connection, conversation, and support from other men who understand the pressures of modern life. Whilst the topic of mental health is an extremely broad one, today we will talk about why so many men struggle in silence, how depression and poor mental health can show up differently for men, and perhaps most importantly, provide practical tips for how you can improve your mental health and how you can show up for the men in your community. So as always, grab a brew, settle in, and join us for today's conversation.
Mind, oh man, life hits harder than we planned. So we gather, we chat, we reset again at the Counsel of Men.
Dan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, we made it happen.
We made it happen. Before we dive into today's episode, can you just tell us or tell our audience a bit about your journey and how you became such a keen advocate for men's mental health?
Yeah, so it's got quite a personal note for me because about 5 or 6 years ago, my dad was in hospital for about 6 months with severe depression and psychosis, and it was a really tough time. It was pretty touch and go, but he got through it. With lots of these things, though, it got buried under the carpet for a long time, and it's only about 18 months ago I kind of sat down with Dad and I said, well, what do you think went wrong? And so ever since he kind of gave me his answer, I've been on this mission to prevent what happened to my dad from happening to other people, because I realized, A, how preventable it was, and B, these key themes that we are just not talking about. So it's kind of why I do what I do today.
That's awesome. And your dad's doing fine now.
He's really good. He's on really good form. In fact, sometimes we speak on stage together now. So it's a real kind of full circle moment of, this happened to him, but now he's on a stage sharing his story, sharing the lessons that he learned from it. And because he has learned those lessons, he's now, able to manage things. So
was that quite hard for him to open up about that? Because it's quite a serious topic, obviously.
Yeah, I think for Dad, he's quite good at talking about things in depth. I think it was just, I think partly he maybe didn't want to talk about it, but eventually, I'm quite curious, and I said, but I really want to know, like, what do you think went wrong for you? And so it was really good to get that insight.
That's incredible.
And what is it exactly that you kind of do?
Yeah,
I totally read the brief. What is it that you do?
Sometimes I ask myself the same question.
Like specifically, because you're a life coach, right?
So it's more, I do more kind of, so running the men's community with my co-founder Tom. I'm a content creator. So I kind of, the aim of that is to create content on Instagram and TikTok to essentially help other men in their 20s or 30s or whatever age really feel less alone with what they're navigating. So for me, that means posting honest and raw content so that someone sees it and goes, I'm not the only one who's going through a breakup or whatever it might be. So there's the content side of things, there's running the community. So that's all about providing spaces for men to connect. So, hosting walks and coffees and curry clubs and book clubs, and that's grown really well. And then doing keynote talks. So I essentially, sometimes with Dad, as I said, share Dad's story and what we learned from it, focusing on themes of purpose and connection. Yeah.
Can I just go back to your dad's story, actually?
Of course you
Because,
can.
and I would encourage listeners to look Dan's profile up, look at his website, and look at his content, because it is a profoundly moving story, your dad's, and it's obviously changed the pathway of your own life. But you talked about speaking to your dad about the lessons that he learned, which has now informed the themes that you talk about. And I was just wondering if you can talk more about that, talk specifically about those lessons you did learn and what the themes are that you now talk about.
Certainly can. And I think before I go on to those, so there were two themes that really stuck out. But the other themes that we did talk about were the I suppose, the classics that we all think about. So for Dad, it was, potentially a lack of exercise. There was lots of stress at work. He worked in corporate in the similar role for 20, 25 years. He, maybe his lifestyle wasn't great. His diet wasn't great. He didn't reach out for help soon enough. But then we kind of moved on to these other two themes. And I was like, oh, yeah, these are the ones that really stand out to me. The first one was a lack of purpose. So, which I think we'll talk more about today. But for Dad, there were points in his life where he did have a lot of purpose. And I think, with purpose, it does ebb and flow. But there were other times where he really lacked it. But at the time, he didn't know that he was lacking it. It's only by looking back, he can see, yeah, that was kind of what happened. And the second thing was a lack of connection. So, all the way from what I call that kind of micro connection, all the way to the more intimate connection, which we know is what men typically struggle to do, to connect in a more intimate way. But for Dad, it was a classic story of getting older throughout his 30s and 40s, friendships dissipating, ended up feeling quite isolated and alone. So it was these two themes that were the strongest themes in what happened to Dad.
And just zooming in on that briefly, because I know that Matt's very keen for this podcast to be a toolkit for people who are struggling with mental health or want to talk to their friends about mental health. And in your
I like to think we all are.
We all are, of course.
Not just Matt.
It's just Matt. The rest of us are just here for fun.
Our director, our producer, our co-founder. In your content, purpose is a key element of what you talk about in it. And if we can just zoom in that for a moment, because purpose is a broad word.
Yeah.
Finding your purpose is, what does that even mean? What does purpose mean? How do you know you found your purpose? Can purposes change? So can you just talk a little bit more about what purpose is, please?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we look at the definition of purpose in a very simple sense, it's the reason for which something exists. Or in a more complex way, it's the extent to which, someone's life activities to themselves they consider valuable and important. And I think it's easy to get hung up on this. I need to find my one purpose, my one thing that is going to get me up every single day. But it can come from so many avenues. So for Dad and his story, in his first role in corporate, he did get a lot of purpose from it. He felt very useful. He felt like an expert. He was responsible, had lots of responsibility, lots of emails into his inbox. So that was all good. But then he changed roles and he lost all of that. He kind of lost his title as an expert. His inbox went very dry. He felt quite useless. He got purpose from his role as a dad. But eventually my sister and I went to uni, we moved out, so we kind of lost that. And he also did football coaching, which was another huge source of purpose for him. So I think it's not this one thing that you're going to find, but it can come from so many sources, whether that's work, whether it's volunteering in the community, in your role as a dad or a mum or whatever it might be, as a brother, even as a friend. Checking in on a mate can give someone a huge amount of purpose.
It's got to be whatever gives you satisfaction, right?
Exactly. You've got to lean into your strengths and it's what you enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy it, then it's going to be hard to keep on.
Because I know the exact feeling is the feeling of moving roles or even moving project or something like that, and all of a sudden you're back at square one. You don't know where everything is, so you feel absolutely useless. And eventually usually it kind of dissipates. But if it fades away, it must be a serious problem with people who kind of retire. I know my dad's similar. He's kind of just retired and he's trying to find things that will fill his time. But people that are, especially in London, that are super high stress people.
I mean, there's a lot of, which I know I want to get into it sort of in the crux of it now, but I mean, there's a lot of literature and sort of research right now talking about how even the idea of retirement is actually not conducive to longevity. So, when you stop working, you lose that purpose, right? I mean, yes, you have your family, but by the time you reach retirement, typically your family has fled the nest, right? You haven't necessarily got that responsibility. You don't have the purpose of work. So a lot of researchers are now suggesting, retirement itself is, it's dangerous, right? Unless you have that purpose or you find that hobby outside.
Yeah,
because it keeps your mind sharp.
It keeps your mind sharp.
It keeps your mind sharp. It gives you so much energy. And on the kind of mental health perspective, although it is quite a sobering fact, the two words that are most commonly written on male suicide notes are useless and worthless. So my argument is that if you have a lot of purpose and you feel needed, it's very difficult to feel useless and worthless when you have a lot of purpose. So it's almost like this. It's not a bulletproof antidote, but it can really help to kind of avoid or at least lessen those kind of feelings, which are common, but like very unpleasant to experience when you feel that way for a long period of time.
And what
100%.
would be your advice? Because Matt wants to move to the next
Matt
section.
wants to move.
What would be your advice to people who are looking to find their purpose?
So for me, finding more purpose all stems from the other theme that I mentioned, which is connection. So when you connect more, you're much likely to find more purpose. Perfect example of that is Tom and I, right? We run the community together. That community was born over a coffee. I didn't know him I just said, let's go for a coffee. And all of a sudden we've grown this community in London that has 2,000 members, and it's given us both a huge sense of purpose.
Fantastic.
Or in a really small sense, your neighbor, you go and meet your neighbor, maybe they're an elderly neighbor, and they say, oh, can you help me with my weekly shop? Yeah, of course, no problem. Huge sense of purpose for the person helping the neighbor with a weekly shop. Where did that come from? Well, it came from connection, because you knocked on the door and you said, hi, how are you doing? Or you smiled at them in the street.
Yeah.
So we're still technically in the introduction segment of the podcast, but I think we can wrap up. We've covered all the bases.
We can keep going. Come on.
One thing we do on this podcast, and obviously we're going to unpack a lot of what we just spoke about, but one thing we do is we ask our guests, what's one thing that people typically get wrong about you?
I would say my content online is quite raw and honest. But I do have that deeper side to me, but I'm also quite silly and quite lighthearted. So when people see me, sometimes when they've seen my content, they're like, oh, I thought you'd be like quite sad. I'm like, no.
Super depressing.
I get sad sometimes, but I'm also quite, lighthearted.
It's the exact opposite. So Rohan, the guy who had on last week, was a comedian.
Right.
So it's the exact opposite of that. By day he's a comedian, kind of standing on stage, and then by night his entire background is in philosophy and various things like that. So it's interesting.
So you spoke a lot about your dad.
Yes.
But outside of that, were there any other specific moments that made you realize kind of the severity of the situation when we talk about men's mental health that kind of prompted you to do something about it?
I think it's just in day-to-day life, either, in old companies I worked for, men who worked there taking their own lives, or seeing news stories online, just thinking, oh, this is the same thing playing out over and over again, or speaking to people, when I was starting to work in a space, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I know someone who, but everyone always knows someone or is affected by this in some way. So that was a real big moment. But also,
you used to be a management consultant.
He used to be a management consultant.
It's quite a cutthroat industry, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty cutthroat, and
it's also very easy to feel worthless. You're sort of doing something that's...
We're going to get so much hate from the manager.
No, I'm a management consultant. It's the same thing.
Okay. Are you?
I'm literally a manager.
Right.
But yeah, it's easy to kind of, you fall into a trap where if you've got a client that's being difficult, they can give you a hard time and make you feel like you're not doing anything, when a lot of the time they don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. And also I struggle with it because I felt so far removed from the end impact of my work. I struggled with the lack of tangibility around what I was doing. So now, because I can see the impact of my work, I'm like one step away from it. It gives me a lot more purpose. Whereas when I was a management consultant, didn't love it, didn't hate it. Like, it's a great job, don't get me wrong.
Apologies to the management consultants.
Yeah, most management consultants out there. And there were lots of things I enjoyed about it, but that's one thing that I really struggled with.
But it's a very common thing across all industries.
Yes.
As things have kind of become more compartmentalized. So back in the old days, you would have someone that would make, a shoe. Now you've got someone that makes, that's probably a bad example because maybe cars is better, but you've got someone that makes one part of the car, then it goes somewhere else, then they take that, put it into something else. You actually see such a small part of whatever it is. You don't get the satisfaction of seeing the whole thing.
Then you just get in the car on your way home.
Well, yeah, but you don't see the car. if you're working somewhere, you're building part of a car, like building the engine. You never see the engine work in a car because it goes somewhere else.
Because you worked in many production lines.
I think it's a good analogy.
It's a good analogy.
I think it's a good analogy. Yeah. From one ex-management consultant to a current management consultant. I think it's a good analogy.
Exactly.
More serious topic. What do you think that people misunderstand about men's mental health?
I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is this whole idea of men need to talk more. Talk more, talk more, talk more. I think has really good intentions, but I think it's causing issues. It's not helping with what we're facing. When you look at, the male suicide rate from 2017 to 2023 in the UK, trend is going up, but we've had this message of men need to talk more for a very long time. And I think it misses so many nuances because for someone to talk more, they need an environment to do that in. Yep. They need someone to listen, right? It's not just a case of
Needs to be
just
the right
talk about how you're
person as
feeling.
well.
Yeah, like if a man doesn't have, 15% of men don't have one close friend. So if haven't got a close friend to talk to, and you're being told to talk more, who are you going to talk to? And also, for lots of men, talking more or connecting in a more intimate way, it's entirely new. So it's like asking someone who's never run before to go and clock a sub-4 in the London Marathon, and they're thinking, hang on a second, I haven't even done my 5K yet. So I think we've kind of got to meet men in the middle more. And also, if you talk once every 6 months, great. I think
you got
So I
to
think-
find what works for you. But it
Exactly.
doesn't sound like you're saying men shouldn't talk at all. It's
No.
more there's nuance to
Yeah.
it where it needs
So
to
much
be.
nuance.
And I think that's the power of your community, the shoulder to shoulders, because you facilitate that community where you can have those conversations, right?
Yeah, so
Exactly.
what's the difference between your community and kind of just making people talk more?
Yeah, so the community is called shoulder to shoulder. So there's lots of research that shows men connect much better shoulder to shoulder rather than face to face. Right, even now we're all sat at angles to each other.
Yeah.
If we're having it would probably feels more confrontational for a man to chat face to face, because if you go to a coffee shop, although it's really lovely to see, you rarely see two men having a really deep natter in a coffee shop, because face to face conversation is quite kind of puff your chest out. It's a subconscious way that we are wired, whereas when we're shoulder to shoulder, it's so much easier. So in the community, it started with walks and coffees, because you're out in nature. We were walking, and before I started the community, I had a stereotype that men don't talk, but whenever we got on these walks and coffees, I can't shut some of them up. It's brilliant. They just keep going, and
you take the pressure away a little bit as well.
It takes the pressure off, and the conversations happen. And I think I've got a whole, maybe we'll come on to it, I've got a whole acronym around this, to connect in this more intimate way, it needs to be, I call it solid. So it needs to be safe, often, low key, intentional, and dynamic. And that's exactly what we have in shoulder to shoulder. And it's not about every time someone comes to walk on a coffee, opening up, right? That's a lot of pressure to do that. But the space is there for you when you need it. So if on your 10th walk on coffee, you're having some relationship challenges, you can talk about it because you have the space there. There's no expectation that every time someone comes, they have to be a bit vulnerable. It can be very lighthearted, and they can talk about whatever they want, but the space is there for them to lean on when they need it.
Well, it doesn't have to be anything special either, does it?
No, it really doesn't.
Some of the best conversations I've had with friends have been just sitting in a car, one of you's driving, the other one's not, and you just kind of don't have anything else to do, so you start talking and it kind of evolves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Best conversations are
That's
in
interesting.
cars, on the golf course, doing some DIY in a shed, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It creates the perfect environment for a man to talk about what's going on.
And it can be about anything, because even though you go along and you talk about your day, or you have a good laugh and you have a joke about something absolutely unrelated to mental health, if you've been sitting in the house, or you don't know many people in London, for example, and you go out and you meet this new community, you feel much better having done that and coming back home after having that experience. So I think that's a positive too.
Always. There's guys that they're a bit nervous about coming to a walk on a coffee. They maybe wake up on a Sunday morning and they think, I don't really want to do this. Maybe get on the phone, scroll a little bit. Oh, this is really cozy and comfortable. They push themselves to come to the walk, and then afterwards, I've had people say afterwards, I just want to go and chat to everyone on the tube now, because this connection has made me feel this way, and I just want to chat to more people. It becomes addictive in some ways.
And what do you do for the people who turn up and are perhaps a bit more withdrawn, and you don't see them connecting with others in the community? How do you encourage them to talk?
Yeah, so for me as a founder, so Tom and I are the founders, and then we have lots of roles in the community. So one of those roles is called a connector. So they help to organize events, and they're also responsible for, at the walks and coffees, keeping an eye out for someone that is new or looks a little bit, oh my God, this is quite a lot, to really be welcoming and say, oh, hey, so good to see you here. Yeah. I think with lots of communities, once the regulars become embedded, it can become quite hard for new people to embed themselves in the community. So it's one thing that we're really mindful of, is there's always going to be new people coming. So we really need to make them feel welcome, because if I was turning up on my own, I would be bricking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of men say that they don't actually realize that they're struggling with these problems, and I think you alluded to your dad as well, until they're very deep into it. What are the kind of early warning signs that people can look out for?
Yeah, I'd say there's quite a few, and I've experienced them myself as well. Even recently, I've been feeling a bit burnt out, and that can lead to feeling more anxious or feeling down. Normally comes with being quite snappy at people, like with very short fuse. So, if I'm walking or if I'm on the tube and someone brushes past me, if I'm feeling good, I'm like, oh, that's all right, they're just in a rush. But if I'm stressed or feeling a bit down or anxious, that's like, whoa, what do you think you're doing? I become really angry. I'm like, hang on, Dan, you're angry, but not because of that, because of something else. So I think especially for guys, anger is one thing that comes out.
Yeah.
I think it's checking in with yourself and thinking, hang on,
How do you,
why am
how,
I angry?
how do you tell the difference? So this is a question I've always had, is how do you tell the difference between when you're having a bad day and you've got a serious mental health issue? And I'm not expecting a full psychiatric answer, but there's definitely got to be a point where it's like, oh, actually, I've been feeling like this for a long time, or this just feels unresolvable.
Yeah, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head with your own answer there, because for me, it's yes, emotions and feelings ebb and flow, and there might be in a week some days where I feel really good and other days where I don't feel so good. But as you said, if that continues week after week after week and you're not noticing any improvement, obviously that there might be situations where life is just throwing things at you and you can't control that, and it's, oh, okay, what next, and it does get you down, and that's really understandable. But I think that is part of the answer.
It's the difference between kind of situational burnout, and full psychiatric depression, isn't it? Or clinical depression, isn't it? It's where you go from being in a situation which is oppressing you and making you this way to it puts you in such a situation that you can't get out of. And I mean, the two things probably come together, but everybody that I've experienced kind of they experience one or the other. It's not really a kind of a clear-cut thing at all.
Yeah, I think it's what's so difficult about anything to do with mental health, because it's not like you can see a physical arm that's like broken and snapped. It's invisible in lots of ways. And like the phrase I used to use when I described what happened to Dad was poorly brain, because I was kind of getting tired of the mental health or depression. It's like, well, he had a poorly brain, like just like you might have a poorly arm or like a broken leg or something. It was the same way in his brain. But I think for anyone listening, it's something like getting out of bed in the morning. If there will be 2 or 3 days in a week where it's, oh, I just don't want to get out of bed. It's just not. It's raining, it's cold, the alarm's gone off, you're tired, work's really hectic. That's really, fine. But it's like week 3, week 4, and it's every single day. It's like, I can't know.
But it's coming back to that purpose thing as well.
Yeah.
Is that if you don't have the purpose in order to get, because I kind of think that controversial, but I don't think purpose is necessarily aligned with happiness all the time. Because it's like we just said, a lot of people look forward to retirement because they think they're going to enjoy themselves. They get there, they lose their purpose, and all of a sudden they don't know what to do with themselves, and they get upset or they get depressed.
Yeah, I mean, work could be your purpose. You might not necessarily enjoy it, but it's your purpose, right?
Exactly.
It keeps you going.
But if you've got that purpose to kind of keep you going through all of the roughness, then surely that's something that can give you a bit of satisfaction, make you happier overall.
Yeah, I think it can be a really helpful pillar to help you navigate the challenges that life throws at you, but it doesn't guarantee happiness, because I have had the most purpose I've ever had, but it doesn't mean that there are some days where I'm like, this is.
Or even having kids, right?
Well, exactly.
Even having kids, you don't necessarily enjoy every moment, but the satisfaction you get from it and the purpose you get from it, it brings you up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On your website, Dan, and we actually want to do an episode specifically on this, but you talk a lot about how you can empower women to also become powerful allies. Do you just share some guidance on that here?
Yeah, so I often get asked by, one of the most common ways men are referred to shoulder is through their girlfriends or their wives or female colleagues, whatever it might be, which I love.
I'm definitely getting a referral after
yeah, sending you straight there. Because they're like, they'll say, I can see my boyfriend or my friend is struggling, but I don't know how to help. And the immediate response or idea might be, okay, I'm just going to sit them down and be like, oh, how are you feeling? Or that face-to-face element again, which doesn't normally work for a guy. So the advice I give is, and I'll go through that framework now in more detail because that's what I do in my keynote talks, and it's so solid is the framework. It needs to be safe. So knowing the right questions to ask and the right responses to give, which, excuse my stereotypes, but women are quite good at being more empathetic. So that is less of a challenge for women, in my opinion. They're quite good at that. It's a skill that they've been brought up with. It needs to be often. So trying to connect, once a week, twice a week, once a fortnight, whatever it is. So if you're a girlfriend with a boyfriend, you're worried about him, it might be, okay, why don't we go for a walk and a coffee every Monday morning before work? It's not even, there's no label of mental health or feelings or anything. It's like, I'd love to do this with you. Like, do you want to just do a walk and a coffee every Monday before work, or on a Monday lunchtime if you're working from home together? So you have that often. It's very low key. So doing an activity that you would normally do together, maybe if in a couple you normally, do something different, go to a wine bar on a Friday evening or whatever it might be, just very low key, and not, oh, I've booked us into a yoga meditation class. And as much as those things are brilliant, again, that's like for the guys, alarm bells. Hang on a second, why are we doing this?
I don't want to do that. He's talking about, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, it needs to be intentional. So on that walk and coffee, it might be cold, it might be wet, but you've agreed to do this weekly walk and coffee, so you've got to show up and do it together. And as I said earlier, for men, it needs to be dynamic. So that shoulder to shoulder activity based exercise.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? It's an interesting point, because I've never really considered it, but you're probably right. Is that, if you're doing an activity with a guy, it feels more comfortable.
Yeah,
as I know a lot of my wife and usually William like to go for coffees, and you guys have a good chat, but I really struggle unless I'm doing something to talk.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hardwired into us men. It's where can be, that face to face, it's confrontational, because it's like, you're coming into my space. I am, a protector, a provider. Like, what do you think you're doing?
Ape thing.
Yeah, I genuinely think that's what it is.
Like a tribal mentality of,
Yeah.
we go out and hunt and go as a tribe and kind of do something together. Maybe that's
You're not in the dark
No,
age,
no.
Robert.
well, yeah, but all of our wiring is still
and there's so many parallels to draw from.
Some more than others.
Yeah.
But I think also it's a bit of an interview setup too. Like, you feel as though you're being questioned, and so you're like,
Exactly.
It's about the nuances and exploring that and what works for every person. Because I know you won't mind me saying, but last week, Matt came in from work and said to me, "How's your mental health, William?" And I was like, "Huh?" And I think I said
So that was. I did not go by the solid framework there.
Yeah, that was
direct.
I was like,
step
what?
right up.
Yeah, that was straight in there. No messing about.
But while I've never been asked that before too, it was very kind of him to
Yeah.
Just a concerned friend, William.
Yeah, because the fella, I was like, I don't know how to answer that. It's quite an awkward question.
I think you walked into your room and you're just like, right.
I love that you hadn't thought to ask it. It's great. It's really great.
Well, maybe take him out for a walk next time.
Huh?
Maybe take him out for a
Well,
walk.
now
next
that when
time.
I suggest it, he knows what's coming. So
Well,
Yeah.
And I'm only a fair weather walker, so
Yeah, your cover's been blown. But
are there any kind of small habits that you would sort of recommend to someone looking to improve their mental state of being?
I'd say, I mean, I can only talk from personal experience really, but I'd say it's waking up and getting out into light within the first half an hour of waking up. That's made a huge difference for me, instead of just waking up and like going straight on Instagram or something like that. We're wired to get outside, so do that. Again, going back to what you said, kind of our wiring hasn't changed for thousands of years, so now we're waking up and staying indoors all day. Your body doesn't actually know that it's daytime until that natural light has hit your eyes, which looking through a window doesn't count, by the way. So things like that, I'd say having regular moments of connection throughout your day is a huge help. So sometimes it can be a bit daunting, and you might not feel like it, but saying, "How are you?" to the barista, or saying, "Oh, that coffee was so good," or giving someone a compliment. These really small moments of micro connection can makes me feel so much better in my day. And there'll be some days where I'm like, I just cannot be bothered to do that, and I won't. There'll be other days where I'm like, yeah, do you know what? I'm gonna say, on the walks and coffees with shoulder to shoulder, someone will arrive and I'll say, "Mate, I love your jumper. That's so cool." And it makes them feel really good, and it makes me feel really good. So lots of connection. Diet is a huge one. so it's so easy to miss. But I read a great book called Ultra Processed People a few years ago because I didn't realize how much ultra processed food I was consuming. And there's more research to be done on it, but it's, again, we're wired to have whole natural food, not bread with 20 or 30 ingredients in it full of emulsifiers or whatever it might be. Impacts our gut health impacts our brain. So eating well, it's all the classics really. Eating well, exercising, connecting, finding those small moments of purpose. Having said that, when you're not feeling so great inside your head, those things can feel very difficult. So the other thing to note there is, what are the very light lift and shift things that you can do? So you wake up, I don't want to get out of bed. Okay, ideally not on your phone, on another device. Put some music on. It's very low effort, but can really help. So that's what I do if I'm like, I'm not feeling it. Okay, just get a bit of a lividine on. Come on, she'll sort you out. That's okay. We've done that first step. Then it might be, okay, just make a cup of tea. Okay, you can do that. Like, there's very small steps, and once you, rather than waking up, I need to run a 5K, it's never going to happen. If you're not feeling it, it's not going to happen. So
especially if you don't have a deadline to do it, and either you kind of, well, we did the 10K in 10 days. I did the 10K in 10 days. You bailed on the first day. But you wake up in the morning and just be waiting for that first foot to hit the ground on the 10K, and it would be dread until you do it. So I think you're right.
When you were just talking about diet, I don't know if the mic picked it up, but my stomach was rumbling. But I think my issue is, well, not my issue, but my you spoke about connection, right? And I think that's absolutely agree with you. And that's my concern with remote working, right?
Yes.
You're getting people who are sort of locking themselves in their rooms all day. They might live by themselves. You know, they don't really have that connection outside of perhaps talking to the barista or whatever it is. Do you sort of, especially with the shoulder community, I don't know if it was founded pre-COVID as well, or if you must have been involved before the period as well, but have you noticed like an increase in sort of an influx in people coming with, you know, issues as a result of remote working?
We have people arrive at our events, kind of, we always ask people, you know, what's brought you here? What challenges are you facing at the moment? And we have had quite a few people say, I work remotely, so I spend a lot of time on my own. So I'm deliberately coming to this space to socialize because I'm aware that this is an issue. And I agree with you. I think hybrid working, you know, is a nice kind of middle ground. But if you're remote all the time, you're taking away so much connection. And I just can't see how it's healthy to be sat in a room inside all day.
It's not even just that. It's like the dating world and all these things where you're kind of creating artificial means of meeting people, as opposed to what you're doing, which is you effectively go along and there's no pressure. You're not sitting in front of someone confrontationally and trying to get on. You meet people and you get to know people, and as a result, you kind of find people that you want to be around. It was the same for me when I was at university. The way I met my wife is like one of my best friends left university to go home, like didn't want to do it anymore, so ended up joining a bunch of clubs, and you meet like-minded people, and then as a result, you end up with friends,
exactly,
and wives apparently. But
it's a good point, because I genuinely don't think we know the extent of this problem, and I think in years to come, when the effects of COVID and everything that happened since are explored in PhDs and other studies, I don't think it'll become clear till then, and even at that point, I think it'll be very, very difficult to properly assess the effect of it.
Yeah, it's gonna, it's been around for a while now. I think the main thing that comes to mind for me is, and again, I'm not a scientist or a particular data expert or anything like that, but there is a brilliant, you might have heard of it, like I think it's like an 85-year longitudinal study done over at Harvard, and they followed the same people throughout their whole lives and looked at what were the factors that helped them live the longest. And the number one thing they found was the quality of their relationships. So if you're sat in a box all day, sat behind a laptop, and unable to spend time forming relationships or developing relationships, it just goes against how we're wired. We're designed to survive around other people.
But I think linked to that too, I mean, a constant thing that comes up in these podcasts and the people we've spoken to is phones and mobile phones, and how people are that. And you said that one of the routines should be that when you wake up, try and not go on your phone first thing. And I'm very guilty of that. But it must have an impact that I think we don't know the
Yeah.
full extent of either.
Yeah, I think even having phones with us when we're having conversations. So even having your phone in your pocket can, for me at least, obviously I try and put on do not disturb, but even feeling it in my pocket distracts me from the conversation I'm having with someone. I'm like, no, hang on, this is ridiculous. Right. So now I try and just put it in my bag, and then it does really help because it's away, or put it in a different room. Otherwise, you're constantly thinking like, what notifications are coming
get rid of it.
It's actually becoming increasingly hard to get someone's full attention in a conversation.
Yeah.
I mean,
Huh?
like even on your, I remember I used to have a smartwatch, and I remember it used to be paired to my notifications. And you're talking to someone, so you're just vibrating the whole time, and it's like notification.
Is that why you were vibrating?
That's why I was vibrating. Yeah. But Dan, what does a healthy male friendship look like to you?
Oh, that's a great question. To me, a healthy male friendship is one that there is banter, there is lightheartedness. I think that's a real special part about a male friendship, is once in a while taking the mick out of a mate or having a really good laugh with them. I think that is brilliant. So that's one thing that I think we should keep, coupled with a relationship where a mate might say, oh, I've noticed you're a bit quiet this week. Is everything okay? And you're able to have a more intimate, deeper conversation and trust them with that conversation. I think that's really, really special. I think there's an element of like being curious in what each of you are doing. I think that's such a lovely trait to be curious and ask questions. How was your work? Not just how was your day? Like, oh, that's really cool. And what do you do? And then you did this. And I think that's a really lovely thing.
Yeah.
And just,
I think it's important to note you probably won't get that from all of your friends. Not all of your friends are the same, right? So you got some friends that you'll have conversations like that with, and then other friends where the conversation will be a completely different way, right? You'll communicate in a completely different way.
There's different friendships for different reasons, I think. Or you might have those friends that you just do sports with, and that's kind of it, and that's so fine. I think my personal optimal friendship is one which I'm through the community actually developing a lot more of, is those ones where there's a bit of banter. I can have those deeper conversations. We'll do sports together, and just have really, and that is what I have learned is what matters to me. For other people, it might be different. It depends what you value. So that's my take.
You mentioned banter there. We actually, the previous episode, we had the comedian Rohan came on, and the subject was whether or not banter or humor prevents men from being vulnerable. What do you think about that?
I think it can be quite a good, if I think of like a can, I think it's quite a good way to open the can sometimes. It's not a good way to go into that can and see what's in there, but it's quite a good way of just kind of, just making a little joke about something, puts the thought. Sometimes it can go too far, which is what I've seen so many times in male friendships, which is, it's not with a mean intention, but you just keep on making that joke, and it's like, hang on, that person might be really sensitive about that. So maybe just park it for now, because you don't know if they're going home and thinking, actually, that made me really upset, even though I didn't show it at the time.
Yeah, definitely. And if you could sort of change one cultural message about masculinity, what would it be?
That's a big question.
I was having a huge conversation about this with my mate Steve the other day, because we're still trying to wrap our heads around this whole masculinity debate and conversation. We were talking about, because we didn't come to an answer, but we were discussing the idea of, we've become quite hot or obsessed with these idea of masculine traits and feminine traits. And so our kind of idea was surely it's just being a good person. Why does it have to be labeled as, oh, that's really masculine or really feminine? But then we thought, actually, no, it is quite nice to have some traits where you're proud and you feel really masculine and manly doing them, and that's part of your identity. So it's some kind of balance in the middle. And it's something that, I want to do more content about it. I want to speak about it more, but I'm still wrapping my head around this whole concept or idea of masculinity.
It's very hard to draw the line between being healthily masculine and being aggressively or toxically masculine, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always, my role model is Aragorn from Lord of the Rings.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course
I just think, what would Aragorn do? And if the answer is, he probably wouldn't do that, then it's probably toxically masculine,
But
So, like,
just be yourself too. I think that's the important message. Like, we don't need to fit into labels. We don't need to fit into like different tribes or groups. It's like, be yourself, and I think that gets lost in a lot of this conversation
Exactly.
too.
Just be yourself. Be
Be Aragorn.
Don't be a dick.
Be Aragorn.
yeah, be a good person. And also,
Yeah.
I think if I was to actually simplify the message, one thing I have thought about is there's lots of negative views towards those more traditional masculine pillars, but actually, I think the ideal solution is keeping, if it was a cake, keeping some of the old slices of the cake. So, I think being a pillar for those around you is a really amazing trait. I don't think we should lose that. I take huge pride in supporting my male friends or my female friends or whoever or my a girlfriend. Like, I take huge pride in that. I like being the logical problem solver that can navigate those difficult moments. I think that's a really cool masculine trait. But we need to add more slices of the cake around being vulnerable every now and then. Maybe emotional intelligence, skills of empathy, things like that. And in the end, I think there's already a great picture of a man, but I think it's a really cool opportunity to create something even better. Kind of like we've had version 1, and now let's move to version 2, which could be even more well-rounded than what we've had before, which is going to benefit men and it's going to benefit women too.
And that's why I think what you're doing, obviously, with the content you are creating, and the others out there as well that are doing it, is just making it okay to show vulnerability as a man as well.
Yeah.
Because again, part of the toxic masculinity issue is that men don't show that vulnerability or emotion. So I think kind of normalizing that is incredible.
Exactly. And when you are vulnerable, if there's people listening that want more close friendships, right? The best way, in my opinion, to develop a close friendship is to be vulnerable with someone. All my close friends are the ones that I've been vulnerable with. All my loose friends or acquaintances are people I have not been vulnerable with. And it's such a clear difference between the two. So if you feel that you can trust someone, do it.
Yeah. It opens up a depth of the friendship that wasn't there
it's
before,
huge.
when you can just sit with someone and kind of talk about things and be honest with someone.
But is there any part of you that hesitates before you put that content out there?
I think I've done it so much now, I've kind of become immune to it. Sometimes I look back through old content and think, did I share that?
But I think it's about doing it in a positive way too, because a lot of the debate around toxic masculinity is toxic. It's negative. It's associated with certain people. Whereas through initiatives like this podcast, through what you're doing in your community, and through what a lot of people are doing now to try and get men to speak about mental health, it's done in a positive way and something that we can all be positive about. And we need to try and move away from this narrative that's negative and try and get people to talk and be open and be vulnerable.
Well, even what like the phrase toxic masculinity, I think we need to completely remove from the books, because it implies that masculinity itself is toxic. And before I started doing all this work in the men's mental health space, I had a view that being masculine was bad. I was ashamed of being a man, because all I was hearing was, oh, masculinity is toxic, it's toxic, it's toxic. Okay, so I shouldn't be masculine, I should be really feminine, and then everything's going to be great. Obviously, I have some brilliant feminine traits that I try to kind of, weave into my day to day. But since running the community, the guys that show up have kind of restored my faith in men, and I feel really proud to be a man again, because I'm like, wow,
you can be a decent.
There are some really great guys out there.
I think it's difficult though with the whole kind of masculine feminine thing. Anyways, is when you say a masculine trait, if you say a good masculine, something that's traditionally a good masculine trait, like being capable or being a good kind of role model and all of those things, then those things can apply to women as well, and vice versa. There's feminine traits that can apply to men. So, I think if you can be a decent enough person that people will rely on you, will treat you as being capable, they'll trust you with things, they'll call you when they need something. Those are the things that you want to be. Or those are the things that I want. Those are Aragorn things.
That's the main lesson from the masculinity
That's the main
debate.
one.
I think that
it's the King Arthur thing. It's like be the man that you
There's so much to unpack.
you want to be. We can spend a whole day with
whatever this
Aragorn.
is sitting
I love
opposite
it.
me. Dan, we're going to put you on the spot here. You're going to be our guinea pig for this hopefully recurring segment, but it's essentially a quickfire.
Okay, I'm gonna lock in.
Right,
my
so
tea
we're going
down.
to test something new, and we're going to ask just a series of questions, and we just want to get your immediate raw thoughts. Right, it doesn't have to be a long thought out response. Just
short and sweet.
Whatever first comes to mind. Right, I think it's 5 here for you.
Okay,
you ready?
Yeah, I was born ready.
One habit every man should build.
getting outside into natural light first hour of the day.
One habit every man should quit.
Bottling up what's going on inside their head.
Best way for men to check in with each other.
On a shoulder-to-shoulder based activity, like a walk on a coffee, golf course, gym workout.
One myth about men's mental health.
That men are bad at talking about how they feel.
And the last one key takeaway you want everyone to remember following today's episode.
I'm going to give you the acronym again. SOLID, safe, often, low-key, intentional, dynamic, which is the formula for intimate connection.
Nailed
Fantastic.
it.
Yeah, well
Nailed
done.
it. It's almost like you've seen this brief.
You memorised that.
I wouldn't have done the brief before the podcast.
No,
That's all.
yeah.
I've never seen the brief.
Yeah.
We've never done that before. That was intense.
That was good.
Everybody,
Me and
someone's
my
got to
mirror
follow
earlier being
that.
like 5 questions, want to practice.
Feels like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Just dim the
Can I
lights.
phone a friend?
Yeah. William,
Yeah.
it's your time to shine here. So we have a recurring segment, Dan. It's William's Wisdom, but William has been MIA for about 3 episodes.
I've been found.
So we can call off the
so-
search parties.
Yeah.
We found him. So what we've done is unfortunately, we're not at a stage where writers write in with their questions. But
They can, though.
they can do, and
What's the email address?
I'll put the email.
I'll send some for the next one.
There we go.
There
Perfect.
you go.
So we've had to resort to the deep, dark web, and I've been in Reddit and scraped a few forums, but I have one for you here, William. And Dan, I'd love your take afterwards as well if you want. But this is from anonymous person. I rarely struggle with being reliable and going to work all the time. Some days, weeks, it'll feel fine, and I'll be on time every day and feel really good. And then with no warning, it's like I can move on. I can't move or do anything, and I feel almost paralyzed with depression. Everyone else just seems to commit to things and build a career so easily, and I've never met anyone who feels the same as I do. If anyone else can do it, why can't I? Does anyone else struggle with this? And if you do you have any tips or anything I can do to help?
Wow. Well, oh wow, that's quite a hefty one. I think the first thing to say is that you're not alone. There are more people than you know who are going through similar experiences. I think everyone goes through tough times in their life and probably feels the same, and the changes in their life probably reflect those situations. The second thing to say is I find for me what helps is my life's based around routine, and I love having that routine. And I think to get over some of those challenges, if you can build yourself a routine and try and stick to it, however simple that is, whether it's going out a walk first thing in the morning, getting up and going for a cup of tea, it's about sticking to that routine and try and give yourself a bit of purpose, going back to the purpose thing. And then the third thing to say is, I know you touched on this the last podcast recording, is it's okay not to be okay, and sometimes you just need to lean into that, explore your own feelings, look inward and try and work out why you're feeling that, so that you can then move on to the next stage of working out what you can do to change your situation and how to introduce that routine and more positive things into your lifestyle.
Anything to add to that comprehensive answer?
I would say some really great points there. And my thought is, great self-awareness if you're thinking that way about, okay, I feel like this and other people feel like this. I think there's an opportunity for a mindset shift. So it's easy to compare or look at other people. But I think it's okay if other people are, or at least maybe seem to be feeling a different way or have more purpose in their work, whatever it might be. How have they done that? What can I learn from them to get to that point? Because I used to work in corporate and would feel very similar to that, where I'd have some, again, very normal through life. You have some weeks or months where you feel really on it and other weeks or months where you don't. But I was in this situation and it was getting me down. So I invested in a career coach. I worked out what I wanted to do with my life, because I was like, I can't sit at this desk for another 20 years, and learned from other people who were doing similar things and made lots of steps to change my situation. So I think all that stuff is important about routine and going easy on yourself. So important. Accepting that it's sometimes okay to not be okay. But once you're in, when you're having those weeks where you feel good and you're self-aware enough that you might want to change something, think about what you can change. What steps can you start to take to maybe change your current situation? Because if I just stayed in my old job, I wouldn't have found extra purpose, and it would have got me down. So I had to change something, even if it was a tiny step to get things going.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask Aragon for his advice.
What would Aragon do?
What would Aragon
We
do?
actually haven't got enough time for that. But we're also
Gets
going
out the whole bit.
yeah, exactly.
That's a good one.
Paragraph
That's a good
20.
Yeah.
No, Dan, one more thing to test on you as well, if you'll tolerate us.
can do it.
So this is a format which is used by a well-known podcast.
There are others.
There are others, unfortunately. But before we finish, what's one question you would like to leave to our next guest, and you don't know who that is, that might make them pause and think about their mental health?
Oh.
Why are you wearing that shirt?
Why are you Aragon?
No.
When was the last time you did something truly for yourself?
Nice.
On the theme of, just want to do more on the theme of self-care, or whatever that might be. Yeah.
When was the last time you truly did something for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I've got one final question, and it's just struck me by looking over here. We
Yes.
haven't brought up a certain person
Oh,
this
wow.
time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to do this to you, Dan.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Timotheé will object. You know who Timotheé Chalamet is?
I do.
Shyamalan.
Right,
Yeah.
Shyamalan. So we have a running joke here, and we actually have a
It's
petition.
gotten out of control.
We have a petition, which I'll also post here, where we're trying to get him on the podcast. But he expressed the intense pressure from social media that he faces, including most platforms, that this makes him feel heavily judged. And he also speaks about the anxiety caused by the constant need to figure out where he should fit in. What advice would you have for Timotheé?
So I think with the social media side of things, it's setting those clear boundaries with it. I think it has lots of great things about it, but it can become more consuming, especially when you're a creator and you're looking at analytics and your engagement and all those kind of things. So I would say to Timotheé that when it gets to 5 or 6 o'clock, you turn off your phone.
Yeah. Close your curtains.
Close
get
your
the
curtains.
Paps out the door.
Exactly. Get the pap, tell them to do one, and just enjoy your evening, get your Deliveroo in, and switch off, and don't go back on that phone until like 9, 10 a.m. the next day, or whatever it might be. In terms of working out where you fit in, I think what's helped me with that is understanding your strengths. There's a really great thing you can do where you ask your 5 kind of close friends why they're friends with you. And it's really cool because they'll come back with various characteristics, which there'll be lots of overlap between each friend, by the way, typically.
Yeah, we've never done that. Maybe we should do
So
that.
afraid.
Do you want the answers?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe
Sorry,
not.
Dan, carry on.
And then once you have that, it kind of gives you a really strong pillar to know, okay, this is what I actually offer people, and I'm going to lean into those things. And there'll be other things that, maybe I don't offer, and that's fine because you can't offer everything. So, my friends came back to me and said, you make me feel really calm. And now I know that. I'm like, okay, so when I'm hanging out with people, I somehow can make people feel really calm, and that's a strength that I have and allows me to fit in certain situations. So
I think one of the descriptions on one of your platforms was the friend you didn't know you needed or something.
yeah, exactly.
And genuinely, I mean, it's
That's
been
great.
it's been a great conversation.
No, I've really enjoyed
We've
it.
really
Kept us
appreciated
calm.
Kept us calm,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
That's what I like to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
And keep doing the awesome work.
Well, like,
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you very much for joining us.
thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mind, oh man, life hits harder than we planned.